When I first read the San Sebastian report, inclusion, what was Inclusion International in those days, my son was only 5 at the time, and it wasn't an issue. But I was really fascinated by that report. It was a significant report. So when Ian got into his teens, it became a bigger issue, and somebody made a comment to me which about whether I would be taking guardianship for Ian, or whether we would be taking guardianship for Ian, or expecting that we would, and that really shocked me, and it got me thinking, no, there has to be a different way. There's no way guardianship it can be right. I just couldn't see that, I all sort of about the same time, I guess, I can't remember the dates, I'd realised that the Ontario Association to which I belonged had been part of the legislative, not the legislative, but the advisory committee to the ministry that was looking at the issue of guardianship. But when they came out with their report, I got I suppose a leaked copy. I'm not sure where it came from, and I didn't ask. I was very glad to receive it. But there was nothing in there that reassured me that someone like Ian, my son, who has a pretty significant intellectual disability, wouldn't just by nature inevitably end up under guardianship, because I was 37 when Ian was born. It was quite a big age difference. So when we were going to be older and perhaps not here anymore, Ian would be alone. There's no brothers, sisters, or immediate other family. And that got me really scared, because I couldn't see guardianship as being what he needed. What he needed was, it just seemed wrong. It just seemed wrong to take away somebody's rights, all of the rights, because they had a significant cognitive disability and wouldn't be considered what was then called incompetent, but now under most law is referred to as incapable. So that's what got me going. But I sent a letter in protest, I guess, to the Ontario Association, just because we'd had representation on that government committee, and I felt that it should have reflected a different point of view, and it didn't. And of course, you know what happens in voluntary associations. If you express such an opinion in strong language, you get to chair a committee, and that's what happened to me. I was asked to chair a committee to look at the same issue. And we were in a very difficult position in Ontario Association at that time, because we'd been part of the process to develop this, what was going to be this new legislation. And here was this task force saying, no, this is not the way to go. And so it was a tricky political thing there for a while. Anyway, people accepted it, and we worked very hard in Ontario to get changes into that legislation that would better reflect what we felt was right for people. And the changes we succeeded in getting were prohibitions against the court appointing a guardian if there were alternative means by which the decision could be made that didn't require placing the person under guardianship, which is really the basis for supported decision making. And we called it all sorts of names at that time, but primarily we saw it as an alternative to guardianship. I guess it was probably because of the work I did in the Ontario Association that I was asked to chair a similar committee in CSL, and that was the committee that produced the report that ultimately was used by Inclusion International to work with UNESCO on what's now the section in the convention. So that's really the history. Other provinces were also working on alternatives to guardianship, and BC, which was doing it primarily, if I recall, because of the tremendous interest in BC in individualised funding, and the two things went together. But it was the Canadian Association document that actually moved on, nationally, internationally, and ultimately to the United Nations.